Well, good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock, and just for sake of everybody's time and to respect that, I'd like to welcome Darren Winger from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Gaming. Last Thursday, the ministry launched Experience 2025. We've all been waiting for it. It's a pretty quick turnaround and a new platform, so we thought it'd be a good idea to get in touch with Aaron that he could run over the new entry form, Experience 25, and then answer as many questions as possible at the end of the session. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Darren. And Darren, welcome, and look forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Dave. It's yes, it is kind of tight, but we're glad to see so many people here, and we are recording it, so it will be shared on the FEO YouTube channel also, so other individuals can follow it. So yes, the exciting news is we are finally launching Experience Ontario 2025. And yes, the deadline is December 19th at 4 p.m. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Next slide, Jay. And thank you to Jay for helping out. So what's new? So we're going to talk about some program changes, what you need to apply, the funding tiers, eligibility requirements, scoring breakdown, TPON challenges. There is one little hiccup, but we do have good news that we are migrating to a portal, and I'll get more into that. It's going to make it easier for you to get in and do your application, who to contact for help, resources, a whole bunch of things. And then I'm going to sort of give you some tips at the end that will help you sort of formulate your application. Next slide, please. I guess the biggest thing is that there's not a lot of changes to Experience 2025 from Experience 2024, which is perfect considering we are today is the 3rd of December, and we have 16 days until 4 o'clock and the deadline. So as in previous years, the event must take place between April 1st and 2025 and March 31, 2026. It must occur over a minimum of 2 days, consecutive days, and consist of a minimum of 5 hours of programming each day. So that's been clarified from last year, but every day has to have a minimum of 5 hours of programming. Traditionally, the events always have to occur in the province of Ontario, be open to the public at large. And with our tourism indicator, because we are the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Gaming, tourism attendance must be 30% of overall attendance or 5,000 tourists in the previous year's event. The event must have been held at least once in the previous 3-year period. Same festival operated by the same lead applicant operator. Obviously must follow municipal provincial guidelines, and you must submit expenses for your event that are not only solely related to marketing or media buys. And once again, always Canada Day are 1-day festivals, and they are eligible to apply, but they are the only 1-day festival that is allowed to apply for this grant. Next slide, Jay. So before filling out the application, obviously, read the guidelines, and I always recommend print the guidelines out and use it. Write on it, put check marks when you've completed something as you're going through all the steps to make sure that you've captured everything that we're asking for, because those guidelines have a lot of information in them. So please, please go through them with a fine-tooth comb, highlight them, mark them up, definitely. Watch the Experience Ontario program and application video. It is on YouTube. And also, I'm going to talk a little bit later about another video that is on YouTube that I highly recommend that you watch, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Once you have an understanding that you are going to apply for the grant, immediately call your tourism regional advisor, or if you're in the northern region, you have a northern regional development advisor to discuss the festival and event. Definitely do that. I would say probably within the next week. Give them a call, reach out to them. There's 10 tourism advisors around the province, plus in the north we have probably another dozen regional development advisors that can assist you with the program. For example, I'm located in Windsor, so I will deal with stakeholders in Windsor, Essex, Pelee Island, Chatham, Kent, Sarnia, Lambton, Haldimand, and Peel. So if you're in those areas, you'd be contacting me. So if you click the link to find out who your tourism development advisor is, please do that immediately, and they can help guide you and answer some questions, or if you're having any hiccups. Also, your best friend in this, if you're having technical issues, is going to be Transfer Payment Ontario. So obviously, have that phone number quickly at your resource. Definitely, it is something so important to have. And not only calling them, but if you're having any technical issues, we'll talk about later, always email TPON also. Next slide, please. So application requirements, what you need to have to apply. Obviously, a not-for-profit number or a CRA number if you are a for-profit operator. So the certificate of insurance, articles of amalgamation or letters patent are very important. And then there are some criteria there if you are a business improvement area or if you're an agricultural society. Next slide. Financial statements are required from all applicants except for municipalities and First Nation organizations. So you must provide the previous year's audited financial statements or review engagement report. And there are some criteria there about what the expectations are, and please insert them into the attachment section of the grant application. Next slide, please. So as with last year, there are 3 tiers of funding for signature, emerging, and community. So a tier 1 signature festival or event are events with a total cash expenses of $1 million or greater. And if your budget with cash expenses is $1 million or greater, you'll be eligible for up to 50% of eligible cash up to a maximum of $125,000. For tier 2, you're considered an emerging festival, and those are festivals that have a total cash expense between $250,000 and $999,999, and you'll be eligible for up to 50% of eligible cash expenses to a maximum of $55,000. And our tier 3, which are smaller community festivals, tourism festivals, events which total cash expenses are less than $250,000, and you again are eligible up to 50% of eligible cash expenses up to a maximum of $20,000 to put on your festival. Next slide. Eligible organizations. You must be a legal entity established by or under legislation, federally or provincially incorporated, a First Nation in the province of Ontario. We've also defined an Indigenous community there. You must have been in existence since January 1, 2024 or before. Also that caveat that the event had to occur at least once in the previous 3 years. So it would have to have occurred sometime in 2024. You can be an operating business. You're not in default of any terms or conditions, any grants with this ministry or any agency within the government of Ontario. And you must be conducting business in Ontario. So you cannot be an operator from Alberta that's running an event in Ontario. You have to be a home registered business in Ontario. Please, on to next slide. So what is eligible? So programming and production fees, for example, artist fees, production costs, temporary staff wages, honorariums for elders, knowledge holder, SOCAN and other licensing fees. Marketing, media buys, distribution costs for printed materials, mobile application and website development, temporary marketing staff wages. And that incredible other column is translation, volunteer training, accessibility improvements, sanitation services, economic impact studies. So with that, and I would encourage you when you do talk to your regional development advisor, run through some of your fees that you may think, do they fit into eligible or ineligible? So ineligible costs are costs outside Ontario and outside the eligibility period, permanent assets, prizes, food, except for culinary demos, publications, sponsorship fees, merchandise, operating costs, permanent staff, alcohol and cannabis related products, and HST. Next slide. So the scoring matrix is everyone wants to know, what the scoring matrix is. So to be considered for funding, you have to score a minimum of 50 out of 100. So what happens is everyone is evaluated, and then all scores that are above 50 are then sent to the minister's office for consideration. So the assessment criteria are based into 5 areas: organizational capacity, festival event information, festival event programming details, marketing and community economic development, and event budget. So as you can see, the organizational capacity giving us the history of your organization, your role within the community, and why you are running this festival, and does the festival fit within your mandate of your organization. Is scoring rate is 25%. Event information. So this is where you get to sell yourself. So 15%, 15 points on festival event information, 30% on the programming details of your event, the who, what, where, when, and why of what you're doing, whether it's a one-day Canada Day event to a 18-day cross-border celebration of peace, unity, and friendship, whatever it may be in between, running through the entire details and why you're doing events on certain days. Your marketing, partnership, and community economic development is worth 25%. And then your budget is worth 5 points or 5%. Next slide. So Transfer Payment Ontario, and sometimes people go, oh, I hate TPON. Sometimes we do too. But we do have something new this year. Is actually there's going to be a grants portal within the larger TPON, which is going to make it a lot easier for you. So probably one of the first things, if you're on the call and you're like, I'm not in TPON, do it immediately. Go and get a My Ontario account to gain access into TPON. And for existing TPON users, your profile can be migrated to My Ontario account by creating an account using the email associated with the Tmail profile. So obviously, in this slide deck of which we'll be sharing, there is a copy of the guide in the video that can actually help you walk through creating the My Ontario account and accessing your TPON account. Next slide, please. So what we're doing this year is the 2025 grant is going to be in an online portal. So the new design aims to provide an enhanced and efficient submission process, creating a simplified user experience. And applications can be saved and then completed at a later date. And again, applicants must create a My Ontario account and create or join their organization to apply. And this is where if you're having any technical difficulties, TPON Help Desk is your best friend. Don't call your RDA if you're having any technical difficulties. It's obviously to the help desk. And if there's a huge lineup, also get a ticket and email them. That's the best way to do it. So the TPON, obviously, available funding opportunities, you go there and you find Experience Ontario and you apply via the Transfer Payment Ontario, you click that. Then you're going to sign in or create your My Ontario account. Next slide. Oh, so there are little pop-ups, so as you can see. So it just gives you a window of what it looks like. And from there, you'll be into the account. Next slide. So every time you go into your account, you're going to have to request a verification code. And then they'll email you the verification code, you input it, and then you can go right into that Experience Ontario grant and either start your application or go in and update your application. Next slide. And again, as I said a couple of times, there's a number of places that you can troubleshoot. With Experience Ontario, there are some FAQs and tips. And the key thing there is your TPON contact details where you can actually contact them with any issues that you're having with the platform. We're hoping it goes a lot easier. We've been testing the model and it seems to be working very well and very easy to deal with. Next slide. So the deadline. The deadline is December the 19th, which is a Thursday at 4 p.m. And 4 p.m. is the key. You must have your grant submitted by 4 p.m. But if you are having technical difficulties, you must email Transfer Payment Ontario before 4 p.m. and call them. So when you're waiting to the queue, make sure that email gets into TPON to say, help, I'm almost ready to submit, but I'm having a technical issue. TPON needs that email by 4 p.m. So that's the key thing. So in here you have the telephone number, and Monday to Friday, they're operational from 8:30 until 5 p.m. And then also the TPON email address. So as I said earlier, please print off the guidelines, write down that phone number right on the top of the sheet, and also the email address, so you have it quickly at your disposal. So once again, the deadline is at 4 p.m. And if you're having any technical issues, make sure you email TPON before 4 p.m. That's why we strongly encourage people to start the application now, work on it a little bit at a time. And so you're not panicking and having to submit, 1 or 2 hours prior to the deadline on the 19th. And you're panicking because there's a huge lineup in the queue because you're having a technical issue. So please make note of those two key tips. Next slide, Jay. So we have a number of resources at the end of the slide deck, and I know we'll be providing this to everyone via email, I believe, Jay. But again, the application guide, the video, your link to your regional development advisor, and how to join an organization with the TPON page. Next slide. So I did mention there's one little hiccup in TPON. So TPON is going to be shut down on December the 13th at 5 o'clock, and it will be back up on the 16th. So we're going to be losing a couple of days because they have to do a cloud migration. So what we're encouraging people to do is when you're in the portal, have a look at all the questions, copy the questions down. So that weekend, if you plan to work on the weekend, you have the questions and you can actually do it in a Word document. You can get it all populated, get it all ready. So when you're back on the 16th, you can just do a quick cut and paste. So we're strongly encouraging you to, when you're in the portal, write down all the questions, very similar to what you've experienced, in previous years, but have them written down so you can work with them in a Word document and then do the cut and paste when it's back up and running on the 16th. Unfortunately, these migrations happen quite frequently, and this was pre-booked well in advance. So unfortunately, you will lose a couple of days in TPON, but there are ways to obviously work around it and work in a Word document and then do a cut and paste once it's back up and live. Next page. And this is just some of the things that you'll be seeing and getting notifications of when they are down, just so you don't panic, what the messages are looking at. Next slide, please. So just some best practices. When submitting your application on the last day, as I mentioned, it could result in significant system delays and high user traffic causing technical difficulties. So we encourage you to work on it early and try to get it submitted prior to the 19th if at all possible. Again, contacting the TPON help desk for any technical issues, not your regional development advisor. And it is a 4 p.m. close. If you're having technical difficulties, make sure the email goes to TPON prior to that 4 p.m. date stamp. And next slide. So again, our program launch was last week. Consultations will go anytime. So please, I strongly encourage you to reach out to your regional development advisor in the next couple of days and set up a time that you can talk about your application. We're more than willing to help answer any questions that you may have on some questions and give you some clarity on what the questions are asking. Once again, the December 13th to the 16th migration issue. So please keep that in your mind. And once again, the deadline of 4 p.m. on Thursday, the 19th. Okay, that is it for the slides, but I do have some talking points that I wanted to talk to everyone about. First of all, who will be assessing your grant? Not necessarily will someone from your geographic area be assessing the grant. So you have to keep in mind that if you live in Windsor, where I live, someone from Sioux Lookout, from North Bay, from Pembroke, from Ottawa, or from Kitchener could be assessing the grant. So one thing that I like to talk to people about is about the art of storytelling. So, we have that one section of points where it's going to be about the project description. That is your opportunity to build upon what I encourage every festival to have is an elevator speech. Does your festival have an elevator speech so within 20 seconds you can tell someone about your festival and tweak them into wanting to either explore more or come to your event? And obviously through the art of storytelling within the first couple pages of the grant, you have to captivate and sort of lay the groundwork for where your event is held, why or how long you've been running the event, and the significance that that event has in your community, including economic impact or any tourism impacts that that event may have. So really look at the art of storytelling for the first part of the grant, and honestly, really through the whole part, because it's your opportunity to sell yourself to the person who is reading the grant. I mentioned earlier another video, probably hopefully by the end of the day, FEO has a YouTube channel, and on their YouTube channel, they'll be posting a session that we held about 6 weeks ago, talking pretty much about Grants 101. And I really focused a little bit on two areas that I'll talk about: partnerships and marketing plan. But it's an hour, and it's a really good opportunity to watch the video and learn about what grants people are looking for when you're writing a grant. Two of the areas that probably are the weakest traditionally are partnerships and marketing plan. So when we're developing a partnership in YouTube, I give you an example about what a partnership is and how a partnership layers definite opportunities. Also, when you're talking about partnerships, it's important to just don't list, $500 cash, $250 in kind, but you sort of reminding yourself that that cash component is cash that that partner is donating to your organization. And sometimes, when I see that a hotel is giving an organization, a festival, $10,000, do they really give $10,000? Or are they giving you in-kind rooms, which is an in-kind expense and not a cash expense? So make sure that you're putting the expenses in the right column, in the cash column or the in-kind column, and you have lots of characters to actually explain some of your cash and in kind, so we can get better understanding, because sometimes numbers sort of jump out and you go, is that really true? With marketing plan, remember, as I said earlier, someone probably not from your area is going to be evaluating the grant. So with that component, I was talking to someone this morning, and we're going to do a radio buy-in AM 800. Well, someone in Sioux Lookout or Pembroke has no idea what AM 800 is. Is it a jazz station? Is it a rock station? Or is it an all-talk news station? So we need to understand not only, that you're doing a radio buy, but the radio buy sort of fits within your marketing plan. And what is your marketing plan? And who are you trying to target? So in my one partnership example, in the previous video, I talked about a jazz festival. So obviously, a Windsor Jazz Festival would advertise on WJZZ, which is the #1 jazz station in Detroit, because I'm trying to attract Detroit people to come across the border to my festival, because I'm featuring some key Canadian, international, and American artists. So you really need to think about layering the partnership and the marketing plan, but you really need to explain your media buy and why you're buying certain markets. Data collection is also very important. And you saw earlier, I mentioned that it is an eligible expense. Also, there is a free model that the province has called TREIM, TREIM, and you can Google that, and it's a free model. So last year, if you have your stats about how many people attended your event and how many people were tourists, a tourist being someone outside of 40 kilometers, you can plot those numbers in and you can figure out what the economic impact of your event was. That is a very key part of the application, and explain not only the numbers, but are the numbers realistic? What impacts did you see immediately? Any feedback from some of your partners on the tourism expenditure? And again, do the storytelling component. I was going to say something else about TREIM, and I just popped out of my head. But it is a great resource. So you can go on to the provincial website. And again, it is free. It gives you, as much as we can, because any model tools, are a bit subjective, but it will give you some impact that your organization has. Again, printing off the guidelines is so important, and contacting your regional development advisor. Those two things definitely will assist you as you move forward with the grant application. So I know that was pretty quick, but if you've applied before, it is very similar. I would really encourage you to look at developing that elevator speech and really fleshing out and layering that storytelling of who your event is, who you're attracting, how many days. And if you have multiple venues, for example, talk about how far they are, because, I remember once evaluating, it was 3 different sites, but I didn't know if you had to get in a car, if you could walk, was it around the corner? So you really have to do that, the setting of the stage. And also,
So,
yeah, oh, go ahead, Dave.
oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Darren. We have a question in the
sure.
chat, and it's from Victoria. She
Hi,
just went into
Victoria.
the portal, and it says the primary contact has to have signing authority. That isn't possible, as our board members are the only ones with signing authority, and they do not write the grants. How do we go about this?
That is a TPON help desk question. So they will probably have to add a staff person in. So that definitely is a TPON question.
So we have our board, like our chair of
Yeah.
our board is already in TPON,
Mhm.
but it says in the wording that the primary contact is the only one with access to the application. And so if he is the only one with access, that kind of concerns me. Anyway, I feel like it's probably I'll ask the help
Yeah,
desk, but
that's the help desk. Yeah,
that seems new this year.
yeah, I don't remember that being there before. Thanks for
Okay,
flagging that.
no problem. Thank you.
Darren, I had a question with the advisors. How long or how quickly do you get back to people once they have a question? I mean, obviously it's a funnel, and there's going to be a lot of questions. So what's the response time typically, say in your region?
If they have a question about the grant as they're
Yeah,
going
or if they
through,
need your assistance on something.
well, understanding that the deadline is, 16 days away, we're going to be doing it quite quickly. So we're always monitoring our emails. So the best way to do it is email and say, I'd like to request a meeting. And from there, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But, for example, I'm in Toronto the next 2 days, but I will be on my phone, checking emails quite regularly, even though I'm in meetings, and I will get back to people as soon as I can.
We have more
Okay, a couple more
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
A couple more questions in chat. Previous year's attendance must be 30% of overall attendance or 5,000 tourists.
Yes.
If we have more than 5,000, that is less than 30% of overall attendance. Are we still okay?
Yes. Yeah, it's the either or, the 30% or the 5,000.
Okay, another question in chat. Are letters of support encouraged, and can they be included in the TPON application?
Yes, they are encouraged.
Okay.
So, for
Another
example, if you have a strong partner, I think that would help your partnership area, or, a marketing plan with a marketing specialist and why you're doing specific media buys or whatever. definitely to include them.
Um, Another question in chat. I completely understand your storytelling recommendations. With the applications starting earlier, do you have suggestions for how to build the elevator speech when you're the only in the early stages of planning for 2025 operating season and don't have many of the details in place yet?
Can you read that again? Okay, so they don't have an elevator speech.
And they're in the early planning stages for 2025.
Oh, so I guess the question is the event going to be very similar to last year?
It says
Or
yes.
yes, well, then you have the basis to move forward, obviously. So I think the elevator speech, even if you don't have it for this time, the next time your board meets, I would put that on the agenda and have a brainstorming session because the idea of the elevator speech is that everyone in the organization knows that 20-second spiel, from every board member to every staff member to every volunteer, so that when anyone is out in public and they say, oh, I volunteer with this organization or I'm associated with this organization, that someone could say, oh, I've never heard of that before. And you can instantly rattle that off so people aren't humming and hawing. For what I would really work on for this time, if you don't have an elevator speech, is really looking at that project description and weaving through the who, what, where, when, and why. So talk about how many days, how many attendees, how many hours definitely is important, and, over a 3-day event, we have 21 hours of programming and every day is a minimum of 5 hours. The type of people that you're attracting, is it a family event? Is it an adult preferred event with, beverage, that type of thing? And do that whole storytelling and weaving in all the layers of the event. So the individual who is reading wants to come to the event and pretty much knows everything about that event. And I know that's tough within, whatever the character limit is. I'm not sure what it is this year, but really to fine tune it so someone really wants to come to the event and they know everything about that event that will want to tweak them and cause tourists to come to the event.
Couple
So
more questions
think
in
of the
chat.
grant writer, one more thing. Think of the grant writer as a tourist. And how am I going to get that tourist to want to come to my event instead of an event 2 communities away?
Question from Peter Ross. Our festival begins on May 30th. How far in advance will organizations learn of their funding status? Will there be advance notice for events starting early in the spring?
I wish I could answer that. I have no idea what will happen. Obviously, the deadline is the 19th. We will be starting our assessing in January, and then it will go up to the minister's office, shortly thereafter. I am not sure. I'm hoping it will be sooner than later. I highly doubt it will be announced at FEO because, the conference, is coming up, but that may be too tight of a timeline. And we also have to consider that there could be a provincial election next year. We don't know.
Yeah, and
so just many different complicating factors.
We've been working with Haley and her team, and it's their hope that they get an earlier notification for everybody. But like Darren says, we just can't commit to it. But yeah, it would be our hope that it would be shortly after our conference, which is the end of February, beginning of March, which is what the timelines used to be pre-COVID. And I know with getting the responses in now that they're hoping to get back to that type of schedule again. So fingers crossed, and we'll keep the pressure on as well.
Yeah.
Another question in our chat from the String Carter. Is the event organizer or group considered the applicant, or can we, as the partner organization or tourism DMO, apply directly to Experience Ontario?
Well, the DMO couldn't. So it'll have to be the festival operator that is the lead applicant. Yeah, I had a discussion with someone this morning. If you're partnering with an event, the event still is the lead applicant because they're the registered entity.
Okay, I had a question, Darren. When you're talking about in kind, if you can show that your in kind expenses take an expense rate off of your bottom line, is that considered a cash expense or is it still considered in kind? For example, porta potties. You had a porta potty company come on that's going to do all of your porta potty needs in kind as
Yeah,
for a sponsorship. So that's obviously taking a
it's in
cost directly off your bottom line, but there's no cash exchanged.
no, but I would explain that in the budget, definitely. But yeah, that would be an in-kind expense, but a significant cost savings to an organization too. Yeah, and definitely include that in partnerships and explain that in the partnership area because there's an area below that you can talk about your partnerships because that would
So
be significant.
while in kind doesn't count directly, a good explanation could
Yes.
help it lean that way.
Yeah. Mhm.
A question from Niagara Falls Tourism. So there will not be any PDF version of the application form. All the details will be entered into the online form.
Yes, Brian, that is correct. Yeah, everything will be in this portal. We're hoping the portal makes it a lot easier than what you've had to deal with in the past with Transfer Payment Ontario.
And is it easy, Darren, just for those that haven't logged in yet or haven't had a quick look around? Everybody I've talked to in the ministry says it's going to be a lot easier.
Yes.
What is making it that much easier?
I think a lot of the applicants would say that TPON is not user friendly. So it's really user friendly, this portal, and just adding things in. It's a lot easier and won't take as much time. And it pretty much you just follow the entire way. It's really, really easy from the people who have tested it. And hopefully will save some time.
And is that going to follow through on the back end as well when you're justifying or sending all the stuff on the back end of your grant to get the rest of your money? Will that be through the TPON and an easier
To be
follow-up
determined.
process as well?
To be
To be
determined.
determined.
Yeah, on that. Yeah. Right now we're working on the front end.
Brian asked another question. Can you apply for 100% marketing or is it a mix of programming and marketing required?
It can be either. You know, if you have a strong marketing plan and that's what your focus is. Obviously, when you're filling out the budget, the whole event budget has to be there, but it's your choice on what you are requesting provincial funding from. And again, just follow the guidelines because it's all outlined in the guidelines.
You got a lot of light come over your shoulder there, Darren, if you could maybe
Yeah.
just scooch over to your left.
There we go.
It's our chance for anybody else. If you've got questions, we've got Darren here for a few more minutes. Anybody got any questions? I don't see anything online. Darren, I jotted down. Will the ministry be sending out just a notice about the TPON going down December 13th to 15th, just as a reminder as it gets closer? Or
So I sent you that screenshot. So when you're in Transfer Payment Ontario, that will pop up leading up to the date that it will be down for those 3 days. Yeah, or 2.5 days. So again, strongly encourage you when you're in the portal to go through the portal and write down the questions so you can do a Word document for those for that weekend that it is down. So then you can just do a simple cut and paste when it's back up on the 16th.
And I think, like everything, it really is worthwhile to watch the video that the ministry put together, to read the program application overview, because it does answer a lot of questions, you know, before you get into the process. I know a lot of people don't like to spend the time doing that, but I think taking that time up front and learning about the process is time well spent.
And watching the FEO YouTube video also. Yeah. Well, again, if there's no more questions here, please log into the portal. If you have any questions, please reach out to your regional development advisor in your specific area, and they will get back to you as soon as they can. I know they're expecting, you know, a lot of calls, so they have blocked some time off obviously over the next 10 days to answer any of your questions.
Well, Darren, on behalf of all of us at Festival and Events Ontario, thank you for taking the time. We're really happy to see that the Experience Ontario application is in process. A tight timeline for everybody. Again, if you've got questions, please reach out to your tourism advisors. They'll help you through the process. If you've got TPON issues, make sure you go online and get those questions answered directly. If you're having any issues or any of a hard time and need some support, we're always here to help as well. So feel free to give me a shout, and we're happy to bring it up the line and help you get some of the answers that you need. Um, Again, I would be remiss not to promote our convention coming up on February 26th to 28th. This year we're in Kitchener and the theme is Synergy. All of the information is on our website, and we are open for applications. We've got our speakers coming together really nicely. So we look forward to seeing everybody in Kitchener this year in February at our Synergy conference. Again, Darren, and the ministry, thanks very much for the time today. We really appreciate it. For those that in your organization that might not have had the time to stop by this morning, it will be posted on our YouTube channel. Please let everybody know, and they're able to watch the link there. For all of us at Festival and Events Ontario, thanks for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your day.